Welcome back to Storytime with Mr. Gavin. We're doing a day early this week. We're celebrating Read Across America, as you can see by the shirt. Miss Cowan went above and beyond like she always does, planning out an awesome Read Across America day for us. And right now in school, we're taking 15 minutes. Every scholar is reading for their pleasure. So I'm going to join in on that, and we're going to keep on going with Crenshaw. Remember when we left, Crenshaw left the room and left Jackson there on his own. So we are going to pick up with chapter 17. Robin was waiting for me in the hallway, sitting crisscross applesauce. Her stuffed armadillo Spot was in her lap. I took her hand and led her back to the bedroom. Her rainbow nightlight painted stripes on the ceiling. I wished I had one in my room, although I never admit it. I heard you talking, she said as she crawled under her blanket. Sometimes I talk to myself. That's kind of weird, Robin yawned. Yeah, I said, tucking her in. It is. You promised Lyle, she reminded me. I had been hoping she'd forgotten. Yep. He's in my keepsakes bag. I rummaged around in the brown paper bag. A bald doll poked out of the top, sizing me up with blank and beady eyes. Scooch over, I said. Robin made room for me on her mattress. I opened the book. Its pages were soft, its cover tattered. Robin, I asked, have you ever had an imaginary friend? You mean like invisible? Invisible. But yeah, like that. Nope. Really? Never? Nope. I have Lysandra and Jimmy and Kylie. And sometimes Josh when he's not being a boogerhead. They're real, so I don't need pretend. I flipped through the pages of the book. But sometimes, when you're alone, I paused. I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to ask. Like, say you're home and you don't have any friends over and you really need to talk to someone who'll listen. Not even then? Nope, she smiled, because I always have you. It made me happy to hear her say that, but somehow it wasn't quite the answer I'd been hoping for. I opened to the first page. This is the house on East 88th Street. It's empty now. Like our house, Robin interrupted, only we live in an apartment. True. Jax, Robin said softly, remember when we lived in the minivan for a while? Do you really remember that? You were just little. Kinda, I remember, but not really. Robin made Spot do a little dance on her blanket. But you told me about it, so I was wondering. Wondering what? Spot performed a backflip. Wondering if we're going to have to live there again, because where would we go to the bathroom? I couldn't believe it. Robin was just a kid. How had she figured out so much? Did she spy on her parents the way I did? Robin sniffled. She wiped her eyes with Spot. I realized she was crying without making any noise. I miss my things, and I don't want to live in a car with no potty. And also, my tummy keeps growling. I knew what to tell her. She needed to hear the facts. We were having money problems. We were probably going to have to leave our apartment. We might even end up back in our minivan. There's a good chance she'd have to leave all of her friends behind. I put my arm around Robin and hugged her close. She looked up at me. Her eyes shimmered. You need to tell the truth, my friend. Don't be ridiculous, I said. We can't live in our car. Where do we put popsicles? Besides, Aretha and Dad snore like crazy. She laughed, just a little. You worry too much, girl. Everything's fine, I promise. Now let's get back to Lyle. Another sniffle, a nod. Hey, fun fact about crocodiles, I said. Did you know a bunch of them in the water is called a float? Robin didn't answer. She was already sound asleep, snoring softly. Me? I couldn't sleep. I was too busy remembering. Part 2. Mashed potatoes are to give everybody enough. A hole is to dig. The first book of first definitions, written by Ruth Krauss and illustrated by Marie Sendak. Chapter 18. I guess becoming homeless doesn't happen all at once. My mom told me once that money problems sort of sneak up on you. She said it's like catching a cold. At first you just have a tickle in your throat, and then you have a headache, and then maybe you're coughing a little. The next thing you know, you have a pile of Kleenexes around your bed, and you're hacking your lungs up. Maybe we didn't become homeless overnight, but that's what it felt like. I was finishing first grade. My dad had been sick. My mom had lost her teaching job. All of a sudden, bam. We weren't living in a nice house with a swing set in the backyard anymore. At least that's how I remember it. But like I said before, memory is weird. It seems like I should have thought to myself, whoa, I'm going to miss my house and my neighborhood and my friends and my life. But all I remember is thinking how much fun living in our minivan was going to be. Chapter 19. We moved out of our house right after first grade ended. There was no big announcement, no goodbye party. We just sort of left, the way you abandon your desk at the end of the school year. You clean it out, but if you leave a few pencils and an old spelling test behind, you don't worry too much about it. You know the kid who has your desk next fall will take care of things. My parents didn't own a lot of stuff, but they managed to fill our minivan. You could hardly see out the windows. I saved my pillow and backpack to load last. I was putting them on the rear seat when I noticed something odd. Someone had left the back windshield wiper on, even though it was a sunny day. No rain, no clouds, no nothing. Back, forth, back, forth. My parents were packing odds and ends in the house, and Robin was with them. I was all alone. Back, forth, back, forth. I looked closer. The wiper was long and awfully hairy. It looked a lot more like a tail than a windshield wiper. I leaped out and ran to the rear. I saw a dent in the fender from the time my dad backed into a shopping cart at Costco. I saw the bumper sticker my mom used to cover the dent. It said, "I brake for dinosaurs." I saw the windshield wiper, but it wasn't moving, and it wasn't hairy. And right then I knew, the way you know it's going to rain long before the first drop splatters on your nose, that something was about to change. Chapter 20. When the minivan was packed, we stood in the parking lot. Nobody wanted to get in. "Why don't I drive, Tom?" said my mom. "You were in a lot of pain this morning." "I'm fine," my dad said firmly. "Fit as a fiddle," whatever that means. My mom strapped Robin into the car seat, and we climbed into the minivan. The seats were hot from the sun. "This is only for a few days," said my mom, adjusting her sunglasses. 2 weeks tops," said my dad. "Maybe 3 or 4. We just need to catch up a little bit." My mom was using her "there's nothing wrong" voice, so I knew something was really wrong. "Pretty soon, we'll find a new apartment." "I liked our house," I said. "Apartments are nice too," said my mom. "I don't get why we can't stay." "It's complicated," said my dad. "You'll understand when you're older, Jackson," said my mom. "Play Wiggles!" Robin yelled, squirming in her car seat. She loved the Wiggles, a group that wrote silly songs for kids. "First, a little hit in the road music, Robin," said my dad. Then Wiggles. He slipped a CD into the car player. It was one of my mom and dad's favorite singers. His name was B.B. King. My mom and dad like a music called blues. In a blues song, somebody's sad about something, like maybe they broke up with their girlfriend, or they lost all their money, or they missed a train to a faraway place. But the weird thing is, when you hear the songs, you feel happy. My dad makes up lots of crazy blues songs. Robin's favorite was "Ain't No PB" in My PB&J. Mine was called "Downside Up Vampire Bat Boogie," about a bat who couldn't sleep upside down like bats are supposed to. I'd never heard the B.B. King song my dad had chosen to play. It was about how nobody loved this guy except for his mother. "What's he mean about how even his mom could be jiving him, Dad?" I asked. "Jiving means lying. It's funny, see, because your mom and dad always love you. Except when you don't floss," said my mom. I was quiet for a while. "Do kids really always have to love their mom and dad?" I asked. I caught my dad's reflection in the rearview mirror. He looked back at me with a question in his eyes. "Put it this way," he said. "You can be mad at someone and still love them with all your heart." We pulled out of the driveway. Aretha sat between Robin and me. She was only a few months old and still had her puppy soft fur and clumsy paws. Our neighbor, Mr. Searle, was cutting yellow roses from his garden. We'd already said official goodbyes. He waved and we waved back, like we were on our way to the Grand Canyon or Disney World. "Does Mr. Sarah have a cat?" I asked. "A really big cat?" "Just Mabel," my mom answered. "The Chihuahua with an attitude." "Why?" I glanced back at the rear windshield, but it was blocked by boxes and bags. "No reason," I said. My dad cranked up the volume on B.B. King, who was still pretty sure nobody loved him, including his mom. Aretha cocked her head and howled. She liked to sing along, especially the blues songs, although she really liked the Wiggles too. We drove a few blocks. My lower lip quivered, but I didn't cry. My mom sighed softly. "Let the adventure begin," she said. That is where we'll leave off for today. If you're watching this, I hope you take some time to celebrate Read Across America today at home as well. Read with your family, read with your kid, have your kid read by themselves, whatever it is. Just let's make sure we are reading and enjoy this day. I hope you have a wonderful night, and I'll talk to you guys next week. See ya.